Mr. Harridan here. We're going to go over some density. The camera's over there, Mr. Harridan. Come on. The camera's over there. Anyways, we're going to go over density, which is mass per unit volume. Think about how tightly packed molecules are need to be close to each other. It is an intensive property, meaning you can identify a substance. You must be wondering, what is a substance? Next lesson, you will learn that is either an element or a compound. Okay? And therefore can be used for identification. Formula for density is density equals mass over volume. The mass will be in grams. The volume, if it's a liquid or solid, will be in milliliters or centimeters cubed. Liters or decimeters cubed for gases. And 1 centimeter cube is equal to 1 milliliter. 1 decimeter cube is equal to 1 liter. We are going to use the guess method, which we are going to do givens, unknown, equation, substitute and solve. Okay? Which is a lot of work to write down, but it helps out in the end when you figure out what you're trying to do. If a metal block has a density of 5 grams per milliliter was split into equal halves, what would the density of each individual block will be? What do you guys think? If you told me, since density is intensive and can be used to identify substances, the density stays the same. It would be 5 grams per milliliter. Like Mr. Harridan, that don't make any sense at all. Well, let's think of this as 5 grams per 1 milliliter. That is my mass per volume. If you take half the mass, half of 5 grams, if you split it in half, it would be 2.50 grams. And then half the volume, if you start off with 1 milliliter, you would have half a milliliter. You divide 0.250 by 0.50 milliliters, you will get 5.00 grams per milliliter, which is the density is the same. That is what I am trying to tell you. Density does not change depending on the substance, does not change on the amount. Doesn't matter if it's a little substance or a big substance, it's going to have the same density. Okay. Certain solid has a volume of 35.7 centimeters cubed. Centimeters cubed tells me it's a volume. And it has a mass of 85 grams. Mass is 85 grams. What is the density? Which should come out in grams per centimeter cubed. Rewrite down the formula. Density equals mass over volume. We substitute in our numbers here. 85 grams divided by 35.7 centimeters cubed. And we get a density of 2.4. Because it says to round to the tenth. Easily done. If the density of gold is 19.3, so I'm going to say the density of gold is 19.3 grams per centimeter cubed. What is the volume of 200 grams of gold? Well, grams is the mass of gold. Grams. We are looking for the volume, which will come out in centimeters cubed. Density equals mass over volume. Okay? We are going to be looking for the volume. So this is where we do the Harridan switcheroo. Since this is a proportion, I could technically put this over 1 if I really wanted to. You can switch this way, that's the means, and you can switch that way, which is the extremes. Okay? You can switch crosswise. Or you can sit there and do the algebra. Volume is equal to mass over density, which would be 200 over 19.3, and we would get a final volume of 10.4 centimeters cubed. See how that's done? to do it. Okay, the density of liquid mercury is 13.6 grams per milliliter. Mercury is one of those two elements on the periodic table that is a liquid. The other one is bromine. If you look at the periodic table, they are blue. Mercury's blue and bromine's blue. So those are the two liquids that are on the periodic table. Okay. What is the mass? So we're looking for the mass in grams of a volume of 35.0 milliliters. Density is equal to mass over volume. Here we are looking for the mass. So this is where we do a half switcheroo on this one. Which would leave me with mass is equal to D times V. Mass would be equal to 35 times 13.6. The mass would be 476 since it says to round to the ones place. And remember your units, because if you don't, you take off points. Not a big deal. Okay. A liquid fills a graduated cylinder to the 45.8 milliliter mark. Okay, so we have a volume of 45.8 milliliters. The empty graduated cylinder. I want the density of the liquid, not the graduated cylinder. Okay, but when they have a mass together here of the liquid, they have 70 grams. So the mass here is going to be 70 grams minus 26.5 grams, which is equal to 43.5 grams when you subtract. What is the density of the unknown liquid? We're looking for the density, which will come out in grams per milliliter. Density is equal to mass over volume, which is equal to 43.5 grams over 45.8 milliliters. This rounds to the thousandths place, so we will round to the thousandths place, which is 0.950. Zero is very important. Tells me the measurement is precise and on the line. On the line. But the density will be 0.950. Page 11. Here, page 11. There's page 11. Just so you know. Okay, here we go. Amethyst is colored form of mineral quartz, which has a purple color coming from the traces element of manganese. Nice. Did not know that. To determine the density of amethyst, you take a stone having a mass of 15.25 grams. Okay, so it has a mass of 15.25 grams. And place it in a 100 ml. I don't care if it's a 100 milliliter graduated cylinder. I don't care what graduated cylinder you put it in. Containing 45 milliliters of water. Well, that's the water. After adding the stone, because this is density by displacement. By water displacement, nonetheless. The volume raises to the 50.8 mark. So the volume here is going to be 50.8 milliliters minus 45.0 milliliters, which should be 5.8 milliliters. What is the density of the amethyst? That should come out in grams per milliliter. Density is equal to mass over volume, 15.25 grams divided by 5.8 milliliters. Hey, did I tell you I'm recording this video in July? Yeah, I'm up here in July. To help you guys learn some chemistry. You know, this is what I do. Anyways, 2.63 grams per milliliter when you divide those two numbers. Easily done. Find the density of the rectangle solid whose dimensions are 3.4 by 1.2 by 1.7 if it is known to have a mass of 119.4 grams. Oh, we know the mass is 119.4 grams. Where's my volume? There's no centimeters cubed. Well, remember, volume is length times width times height. So I have to do 3.4 centimeters times 1.2 centimeters times 1.7 centimeters, and you get 6.936 centimeters cubed. I don't round until I get to the end. We're looking for the density. That will come out in grams per milliliter. Density is equal to mass over volume. So we have 119.4 grams divided by 6.936 centimeters cubed. Yeah, centimeters cubed. Density will come out to be 17 grams per centimeter cubed. Easily done. You need to know the density of water at 3.98 degrees. Density of water is 1. Okay? Technically, if you affect the temperature, it changes the density slightly. Okay? Because remember, if you go below that temperature, it's really ice. And ice tends to float on water. If you go above, it becomes gas, and that usually is less dense than liquid water. Okay. How much will 500 milliliters of water in grams? Okay. Well, we know the density of water is 1 gram per milliliter. We know the volume is 500 milliliters. We're looking for the mass in grams. Density is equal to mass over volume. So we have 1 equals mass over 500. 1 times 500 is 500 grams. Gotta love those calculations with 1. Substances that are less dense than water will float on water if they do not dissolve or react with the water. Okay. A certain substance has a mass of 3,200 grams. Boy, it has a mass of 3,200 grams. And a volume of 1950 milliliters. We just expect the substance to float, assuming it did not react with the water, so we need to find the density. Grams per milliliter. Density equals mass over volume. We have to do 3,200 grams over 1950 milliliters. Okay. Which would equate to 1.6 grams per milliliter. So this would sink. This is above 1. Would you expect the substance in the previous example to float in mercury? 13.6. That would float. Because the density of the object is less than the density of mercury. And you didn't see anything I wrote down because I was not on the screen, because that's what I like to do. I like to hide what I write down because that's the kind of person I am. Okay, you guys are champions. The legend is out.